Welcome to this series on how to play Cloudspire. If you currently don't know much about Cloudspire but want an introduction, feel free to check out the game overview for Cloudspire linked in the description below. Otherwise, let's begin and do so with setting up the game. Players first randomly determine a first player. Starting with this player and moving clockwise, each player will select a faction of the game. In the base game, the 4 factions included are the Brahmin, the Grove Tenders, the Heirs, and the Norora. If players have access to the expansion content, such as the Grige or the 2 new faction expansions, the Uprising and Horizon's Wrath, they may choose from those as well. When choosing a faction, the player takes the fortress, dice, and chips of said faction, as well as a barracks which stores the faction chips. Players can prepare the barracks in the following manner. The 2 spire types are placed in the back. The 3 heroes of that faction are placed in the front. The rest of the minions are placed in the middle 2 rows, and players may find it helpful to arrange these by CP cost, shown by the gold fist on the chip. Additionally, each player should take the reference sheet for their faction. This will educate the player on how the faction works and gives much needed information on the heroes, minions, and types of spires, as well as any special abilities they may have. Finally, each player will also take their faction's marked chip, as well as a gate health and source tracker chip. Now it's time to create the islands. Players should first locate the center isle. In the new printing, this tile has a small number 1. Otherwise, simply find the isle with a source well in the middle, surrounded by path. This isle is placed in the center of the play area. The players then locate the remaining 7 isles, shuffle them, and place 1 back in the box. The 6 remaining isle tiles are slotted in and placed face down around the center isle as shown here. The second player then chooses one of the face-down isles, revealing it, and rotates it to choose its orientation. When placing it back in the same position, the player must place the isle so that a path hex on the revealed isle is adjacent to a path hex on the center isle. Once a player reveals an isle tile, that same player must then attach their fortress to the isle they revealed. When placed, the fortress gate, shown here, must be adjacent to a path tile. Additionally, the fortress gate must be touching the isle on all 3 sides. Note that the fortress cannot overlap with any other neoprene, but it can touch adjacent hex groups. Once each player has revealed an isle not already flipped and attached their fortress to said isle, the players will take turns with the remaining face-down tiles, flipping and orienting them until all are revealed. Each player will now attend to their fortress, placing their gate health tracker chip in the rightmost cutout with the side showing 1 to 10 face up. The gate health starts out at 10. They will do the same with their source tracker chip, placing the side with values 1 through 20 face up. The source tracker starts at 0. The players can then place their faction's barrack, dice, and reference sheet nearby as well. Now that the players' fortresses are set up, we can begin placing landmark chips and creating the market. Players can start by finding the white landmark chips, of which there are 19 in the base game. The ancient Traxxir landmark chip can be returned to the box or kept off to the side, as it may be needed later on in the game. The remaining landmark chips should be shuffled and kept face down. Then, locating the source well nearest each fortress gate, a random face-down swamp landmark chip should be placed on top of that source well. Once this has been done for each fortress, the remaining source wells on the island should be covered randomly with landmarks, including the source well in the middle of the game board. The remaining landmark chips can be placed to the side of the play area in a stack, and may be called for later on in the game. Next up, to set up the market, the black-colored market chips should be found and shuffled, and staking out an area outside of the island, placed in a stack. From this stack, players reveal a number of chips equal to the number of players plus 1. Also participating in the market are the 8 earthscapes included in the base game. These are shuffled together to create a face-down pile as well, and a single earthscape tile is revealed, which will be available for purchase during the game. Now we can set up the miscellaneous components essential to the game, starting with the event and relic cards, which are shuffled into their respective decks. The event deck will be used as the first player marker throughout the game, and as such is placed adjacent to the first player's fortress. The relic cards, on the other hand, can be placed somewhere off to the side of the board. Players will also want to place the following components strategically around the board, so all players have access to them. The fortress advancement pegs, the Spire attack dice and D6, the attack, range, and fortification upgrade chips, and finally, the health chips. Now, players are entirely ready to play Cloudspire. Unless, of course, they have the miniature expansion. In that case, the players will take the 6 corresponding miniatures for their faction and hopefully find somewhere nearby to place them. In the next video, we'll be taking a look at the basics of Cloudspire.